happens when you mix the wisdom of Deepak with the fire of Tupac. You get Justin L. Shaw, author of Sourcery 101, 13 Rungs to a Higher Elevation of Consciousness, spiritual rebel, and former stand-up comic who turned pain into power. Tonight on Inner Peace Better Health with Saima, we dive deep into Justin's raw, real, and hilarious healing journey. From addiction and trauma to discovering how source energy can be the most potent medicine of all, if you're tired of the sick care system and craving soul level transformation, this one's for you. So, Justin, your story is wildly inspiring. What was the breaking point that became your breakthrough?
Uh, well, there were several, I suppose. The kind of most recent, I guess, breakthrough was when I started kind of I went through a series that I had a kind of rough upbringing, childhood, more kind of a neglectful upbringing. There wasn't a lot of love in the home and things like that, so that led me to a life of of kind of tough things and experiencing a lot of drug addiction. And I've been to, I've spent nights in jails and rehabs and park benches and all kinds of stuff. And the real kind of awakening started happening in kind of adulthood. I experienced a series of very unfortunate events of just lots of deaths over this period of time. And I was my mother and my sister. I had a childhood friend. I had I lost my son. There's a lot of bad things. So it brought me truly to my knees kind of thing. And what I started realizing after doing some deep soul searching and, kind of letting go of former beliefs that I had about the world and about myself and letting those beliefs go and into integrating a lot of meditation, I connected with the source, which the book is called Sorcery 101. There is a you in my sorcery to separate it from the sorcery of, Lord of the Rings. It's not Gandalf or Merlin. There's no cauldrons or wizard robes that are involved in my kind of sorcery. It's source energy, SOURCE. So I connected with that source energy and things just I realized I'd kind of been on airplane mode my whole life. This kind of fog and the when I connected with this energy several years ago, at that moment, airplane mode had been turned off. I had I've had panic attacks my whole life, and this was a bliss attack. It was if you replace panic with love, that's what this was. So I started realizing that things are quite not of what they seem to be, and just started really doing some deep soul searching and letting things go and meditation. And I realized that we're surrounded by this kind of sea of consciousness. And this, if you were to ask a fish about the water that they swim in, they would say, what water? So, and we kind of swim in this sea of consciousness. It's everywhere. It's been here since before the beginning of time, and it will always be here. And it is just this force and energy that you can connect with that can help and guide and heal anything, any physical, emotional, and mental issue. Once you get to the deep core of the spirit, these other things, I truly figured out that dis-ease in the soul is what is the cause of disease in the body and mind. And,
Mhm.
especially here in America, this is a nation plagued by dis-ease, and we have disease everywhere. And our Western culture doesn't quite, they have a real good hand on acute problems. If you break your arm, don't send me to a chiropractor. That's not appropriate. Like I need the bone to be set and by a doctor and that type of thing. So they understand acute injury, but what we don't understand here at all is chronic injury, and that is where the energetic healing comes in. The shamanistic way certainly in India, they understand a little bit better too, but the shamanistic way of doing things is, to that the body heals itself, but, just like a
Hmm.
bone needing to be set by a doctor, a shaman kind of comes in and emotionally sets the bone, so and that is the deconstructing of these false beliefs we have about ourselves and about the world and about all these things and beginning to heal itself and letting it heal itself and meditating and letting go and letting the body heal itself. So that's kind of the what the book is centrally focused on. Yeah.
Hmm. So when did humor become your way through, the darkness, not just a mask for it?
Yeah, the humor. So I used to be a stand-up comedian. Well, I made an attempt at it. I never got paid for it, so it's certainly never professional. But I made a go at it quite a long time ago. Um, and that's always been something that I've kind of it's helped me. It's helped me heal humor, and that's why there's so much humor and kind of pop culture in this book is because I grew up kind of in a very lonely atmosphere where I was really alone a lot. Um, and humor was something I just always watched a lot of these, funny movies we have, especially here in America, and all these great things that would make me laugh. And that would always bring me a lot of healing, a lot of healing. So being funny was something I always found enjoyable, and I really liked making people laugh. It kind of got me high and made me feel good about myself, and everyone laughing around you. It's quite an amazing feeling. So humor is something I've always has been a part of me, and once I started kind of awakening, I realized that what might be missing in the deep spiritual community is more humor. Certainly it's out there. I'm not saying it's not out there, but that's just something I think, I especially like here in America, we have comedians and we have kind of spiritual leaders, and that there hasn't I don't know of many. I don't know of I can't name of any that's really got a good meshing of both. So once I realized I could use my humor and help people um and also make people laugh at the same time, kind of awakening people and making them laugh. There's this great combination that really opens people up to experience new things when they're laughing at the same time that they're learning. So the book is kind of laugh, think, feel, kind of cycles through those three emotions through all the way through.
Hmm. That fusion, truth wrapped in laughter is medicine so many people need but don't, you know, ask for.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's there's a lot missing from that in the world, and that's a very, very important aspect to this book is humor. It's filled with it. When someone's laughing, you can't be scared and you can't be angry, and you can't have fear and anger if you're laughing. So that's a big part of it, and I think something that's very much missing. If we had more people that were laughing, I think we would have less problems in the world. I mean, certainly you don't feel like attacking and you know shooting or bombing other people if you're laughing. That never happens. I've never seen someone laughing and shooting at the same time. So if we have more people laughing, I think I think it could be quite a change, and I truly think this book could, the ideas in it and the concepts are could change the world. I'm not saying it will, of course, but it the ideas in it could change the world. And really, I'm after kind of there's this thing. It's called the Maharishi effect, and it is the idea that 1%, if you change 1% of any given population and you get on board with these kind of, these concepts and the meditation and, this peace and love and these type of things, if you just affect 1% of the population, it will drastically change the entire population. So, and to to get an example of that, diet soda is actually 99% water. So 1% and chimpanzees are 1% away from being human. So 1% will change the entire structure or makeup of the organism, 1%. So that's been my goal, just 1%. I think that's very doable.
That completely makes sense, Justin. Now, let's talk about Sourcery 101. Why did you choose to, reimagine the word, and what makes you 13 rungs different from traditional systems?
Yeah, good question. So I've been involved in AA a lot. I don't know if you have that over there or not, but and Alcoholics Anonymous, where there's, I had this event happen to me where it was mind changing and this sort of bliss attack that I went over earlier, and it really kind of changed me. And over the course of a few years, I came together that like this is my kind of calling, was to create this system, and I had to think about how I wanted to structure it, because I had all this stuff going around in my head that was like all this amazing stuff and healing and humor and just all this stuff, and I had a way of structuring it. So in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have the 12 steps, and being someone who struggled with substance abuse my whole life, alcohol, drugs, everything, it doesn't matter. I'll I'll do anything. So, I saw this system that was in place that people followed that, got people better. There are issues I kind of have with AA, but it's also done a lot of good. And, the world is the world of gray. There is good and bad to everything. We want to say that we want to put our, everything in a box. It's either good or it's bad. It either is or it isn't. But the truth is the world is a world of gray. And there's a lot of good things to AA, and there's some things that really detract from it, like, being powerless and things like that. But the good part of it really is good. And I took this idea of the steps, and of course the rungs are completely different. They're nothing like the steps, but I just took that idea. And so instead of steps, although moving forward is good, rungs, you're moving up. Like the rungs of a ladder, you're moving up. So moving forward is good, but moving up is better, because a bird has a better view of things than the worm. So
Hmm?
I felt like moving up is a better way to go. And there's 13 for a very specific reason. So there's 13 in that. So 13, especially here, is considered an unlucky number. In America, it is so unlucky that every hotel, if there's 13 floors in a hotel, they will say the 13th floor is the 14th floor, which doesn't even make any sense, because it's the 13th, like it's the 13th anyway. But there's no 13th floors in hotels, at least here in America.
Hmm?
There's none. So this idea that 13 is unlucky is false. It actually, it's this whole thing that was created. I looked into it, and supposedly it's kind of more has Christian roots, that there were 13 people at the Last Supper, and Judas was considered the 13th person, so 13th was unlucky. And this, none of this makes any sense. None of it. But the fact is 13 is a very lucky number, and it's associated with the divine and will bring good luck and prosper to anyone who embraces it. So the idea 13 is very important, because sorcery is the first step, is the first rung, is about, deconstructing false beliefs. And there were a lot of false beliefs that I had to let go of, especially in terms of Christianity, which all these things that I am separate, I am just a powerless, worthless human being that needs God in my life, and I need this pastor to help me, like I cannot connect with. I need this pat. He's my media. He's my middleman. And without this pastor, I can't talk to God. And that's all bullshit. We're all embodiments of the divine. We all are God. And the reason this is kept secret is because then churches can't operate if everyone knows that they have the power of God in them. So there's a lot of this deconstructing of these old programmed beliefs that I had in my head that served me no good. They served me no good. So the 13 and the rungs are, there's a lot of deconstructing of these false beliefs, and And so it's a very important number, but that is kind of how the system works. Rungs, you climb a little bit higher, and by the time you're at the top, you've got a real good view on things, and maybe you have a better perspective on life.
Hmm. That's really thought provoking, Justin.
Well, thank you.
So, mhm, what's one of the rungs that, personally shifted your life the most?
Ooh, boy, it's hard to choose. So I can go over them briefly. I can't obviously we no time to go, but I've memorized them recently, so this will jog
Hmm.
my memory. So there's shadow work, a call for inaction, surrender to serenity, health is wealth, emotional alchemy. There's comfort and discomfort, attention to intention, goats over sheep, follow your bliss, rose colored contacts, intention or intuition versus instinct, the chakra life, and assist leader. So out of the 13, I would say, shadow work is the first one, and it's probably the most important because we all have this shadow, this side to us that is reactionary. And like you had introduced me, I love saying, I'm a little bit Deepak and a little bit Tupac because that is that is the that is the divine versus the reactionary side of us, and we all have it. Some people, the shadow is running their life, and other people, I like to say the shadow is either driving the car in the passenger seat or in the back seat. And where you want it is in the back seat because you can't kick it out. It's got to be in the car somewhere. And to be able to just check on your shadow and like, kind of say, "Hey, how you doing back there?" and check on it once in a while. That's a healthy relationship with the shadow, and that is keeping it dormant. You want it kind of dormant. You don't want the shadow taking over your life. I think everyone knows someone in their life that their life is just a complete dumpster fire, and I was one of those people. So, that is when the shadow is completely controlling every aspect of their life. They're making terrible mistakes. Maybe their drugs is running their life, or they can't hold a job. They can't function in society. Many of the unfortunate homeless people, their shadows have taken over, and that's just their trauma. That is their limiting beliefs. It is their childhood trauma, and it has taken over, and it has consumed them completely. Um, and then you might have other people that their shadow is kind of in the passenger seat, and these are people that are functioning in society. Maybe they don't have terrible alcohol problems or drug addictions, and maybe they hold down a job just fine, and they function in society. But maybe they can't get a relationship together. That nothing. They can't get a relationship that lasts a year, or they can't. They have really hard time connecting with people, or that is someone with their shadow is still heavily involved. Anyone that's in the passenger seat of a car, you're talking to them, they're involved, and that's still too involved. So you want to become familiar with your shadow. You want to love the shadow. I don't believe in fighting the shadow at all. I believe in loving it and treating it like a brother. Maybe it's a brother that lives on the couch and that doesn't contribute a lot to maybe it's a brother that doesn't pay any rent or do chores or anything, but it's still your brother, and you don't want to kick your brother out on the street because the shadow was made in a time that we needed it. It was made in a time that it was necessary, but unfortunately, like we can't have our shadows running our lives. And everyone, and you're going to know, like how you're programmed. We're all walking computers in a way, and how you're programmed because you're either programmed for one of three things. You're programmed for failure, you're programmed for mediocrity, or you're programmed for greatness. And anyone that's listening is going to know which one they're programmed for. And you know I and the great thing is there's change that you can change, and getting in touch with the shadow, being aware of this other side of us is the beginning of the change, and we can all change. And I am now programming myself for greatness after being programmed for absolute failure. So it's a very exciting time in my life, certainly.
I love that. You're not just breaking patterns, you're building new ladders to consciousness one real step at a time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And one step at a time. And each one is important. And it kind of came to me in a way. And one of the ones I like to talk about is emotional alchemy. So that's alchemy is something that real sorcerers would do. Whether it would happen or not is up for debate. Scientists say it's impossible, but I don't I don't like that word very much. So but emotional alchemy is very possible, and it is something I do daily. And it is a matter of turning base emotions, alchemy's base metals into gold, and emotional alchemy is base emotions into elevated emotions. So, the easiest is, hate and anger into, love and forgiveness. And but there are, you can take your judgment of someone, like you're judging someone, and maybe there's some disgust and, oh, why can't this person get there? You can you can alchemize that into curiosity, and those emotions will start to fade and get better, because you'll start asking yourself, why is this person acting this way? We all have people that, just act like idiots, and most of the time they just drive us crazy and piss us off. If you start questioning things and start questioning, why is this person being such a jerk? Why are they, what's going on in their life? I bet there's all kinds of and it gives us an ability to not react back, because that solves nothing. So being curious about, instead of judging people and interacting with anger, be curious about them. So that's a way to alchemize. Another way to alchemize is if you can take a trauma that you experienced, and over time you work on it, and through various techniques and things, you can turn that trauma into wisdom. Once you disconnect the emotion from the memory, it turns into wisdom. So trauma can be alchemized into wisdom. You can kind of take the trauma, and there are ways, through meditation and through these acts of forgiveness, and you can take your trauma and slowly, like, disassociate the feeling with the memory, because that's what causes all the problem. That's what PTSD is kind of either the thought causes the feeling, or the feeling causes the thought. But if you disconnect the two, you can have a memory without it reacting, and it's very possible. So that's another way to kind of alchemize emotions, which is another big one, I think. And a lot of it is just has to do with letting go and forgiveness, which, once you start understanding human behavior better, it starts being much easier to forgive and let go and alchemize your emotions. Once you understand that everyone you encounter is just a reflection of the environment they grew up in, everyone. So people that are acting in a way, like, you don't have to react to them. You can start to get curious and be like, oh, this is someone who obviously didn't grow up the way I did, or and they weren't taught how to handle their emotions. Or so, now it can kind of turn into some gratitude. It's like, wow, I'm really glad I'm not them. I'm glad I'm in charge of my emotions more, and it completely changes the situation. And so if you attack a situation with love, peace will follow. So, there's a lot of very important aspects to the whole system that I've found have helped me completely bring my life up out of the gutter.
Mm. You're really showing us that healing doesn't have to be sterile. It can be messy, spiritual, and even funny as hell.
Yeah, no, it truly can. Yeah, yeah, no, it absolutely can. Yeah, and I'm getting in the stages of recording the audiobook for the Sourcery book. The Sourcery book is on Amazon. It's spelled with a U. It should pull up like the second one, or my name, Justin L. Shaw. But I'm in the process here. Probably next week I'll start recording the audiobook, which is going to be really fun, because I do voices. Like, I do, I can do voices pretty well. So there's a lot of impressions and voices I get to do in the book that are going to be a lot of fun. And my reading of it is energetic and will be a lot of fun too. So, it the book is amazing and humorous and great, but the audiobook is gonna be even more funny, because I'm gonna read it.
Looking forward. Thank you, Justin Elshaw, for reminding us that Source is available for everyone and that laughter might just be the most sacred medicine of all. And for all our listeners, healing doesn't always happen in silence. Sometimes it shows us loud, bold, and full of metaphors that actually make sense. So grab Sourcery 101, share this episode with someone who's ready to rise, and remember, your story isn't over. It's just getting real. Until next time, keep climbing those rungs and stay rooted in the soul.